Alright, we're going to go ahead and talk about lofting. Lofting is the way that I can use multiple shapes to create one piece of completed geometry. So we're going to go ahead and hide our first tank, and we're going to create a couple of new shapes that are going to work together for our loft object. So first of all, I just need a line to basically create and throw my shape along. And I'm also going to need a profile shape to extrude down along that first shape. So I'm just going to start with a circle here and adjust the radius till it's something that approximates the radius of my fuel tank here. So we're going to start with that central line. We're going to go to the create panel, and then under geometry we need compound objects. So lofting is something that deals with taking multiple shapes and turning it together into a single new shape. So we're creating a compound object. So when I select loft, I have two creation methods here, either get path or get shape. Right now I have the path selected, so I want to hit get shape and then grab that shape. As soon as I do, you see I basically have created a cylinder. Now, when I go to the modify for this, I have some deformations on this object that I can use things like scale, and I have a profile curve here. So I can make things smaller or larger along that profile. So we can insert vertices along this as well, but I'm going to click and hold on that because I don't want a corner point, I want a curve point. So as we bring a curve point back into this area, as I make that bigger, actually we'll make this a bit bigger so we can see a little bit more, and then we can use our zoom extents to zoom into that curve a little bit. So as we move around here, we'll be able to extend this and create a curve. Now I want to find my corner points. That went in pretty close to the right spot. So we're going to reselect this point and we're going to drag this down a bit so that when we get to this point here, we'll figure out exactly how. So as I add a couple more corner points in here, as I zoom in here, I can create all of the same details that we created with lathing with a couple of simple shapes and a bit of modification in a curve editor. Now we'll insert another curve point right about here. We'll move that up a bit. So maybe we need these two out a bit more. We'll bring this one back down a bit. And then, as I add a couple more corner points, see if I'm adding them in the right spot. Well, that's pretty close. So as we bring this back up a little bit, we'll see where we're moving that. All right, and then just like we did with the other one, we'll zoom in a bit and add a couple more corner points in between that we can move out. And we'll go back and start adjusting these curves. And this one we're going to want to convert to a Bezier so that we can round it out down there. So I'll right click, convert to Bezier. So as I bring that out, you can get a bit more of the curvature at the top here. And that seems pretty close to the shape that we drew for the other one. Now, one of the really interesting and powerful things about lofting is that all of this can actually be animated. So you can start to imagine that there's some pretty incredible power that you can do with things like lofting. It's a pretty cool way to be able to grow wires protruding out of objects, or grow wires connecting from one object to another, and kind of making it feel like things are alive. All right, so that's good with that curve. Now, the downside to creating objects this way is that if I want to have the opening extruding back in like we did with our lathed object, I kind of have to commit to this at this point and then go ahead and modify that by hand. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually copy this. So I'm going to right click and clone it as a copy, and one of them we're going to hide. Doesn't really matter which. So then I'll select it, I'm going to right click and convert it to an editable poly. Once it's an editable poly, I have the ability to go ahead and do things like inset, so that we can inset that in a small amount, okay it, and then we can extrude it back up negative into the object. Then we can go ahead and look at some things like this, where we really don't need that much geometry along that edge. So I'm going to go to my edge tool. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more, make this full screen. Then if I select one of these edges and hold down the shift key and select the next edge, it selects the entire loop all the way around for me. If I hold on Control and hit backspace, it will remove that edge and all associated vertices. So we're going to grab a bunch of them here. Not that one, so I can Alt deselect. We'll zoom in on that so I can get a better grab here. And then we'll just shift click all of those. So again, Control backspace to remove all those edges. Now, these two need to get a crease. So as I increase the crease amount there, we'll have a much harder edge in the geometry. What I can also do, if I undo that, or set that back to 0, if I go to Polygon, I can select all these polys, find out what smoothing group they have. Let's actually just select everything and re-auto smooth this to clean up the smoothing groups. Now, what that did was actually looked at the face angle change between these and set it to a different smoothing group. So if I select one, we'll see what smoothing group it has, and I select the adjacent polygon, and it's a different smoothing group, which means the Max won't try to smooth across those two faces. So I'm going to go back to my edge, select all those, and then shift select the nearby, and then Control backspace. Alright, so that's our cleaned up lofted object.